Here, bathed in the pale light of Shenwu, year 23, spring unfolded its tender leaves. The willows were just beginning to bud, their delicate green barely clinging to the branches. A chilling wind, sharp as splinters, whipped through the air, and Su Yunchuan awoke to a cacophony of distressed cries. Her first instinct was to clutch her lower abdomen, a phantom pain still lingering. Then, her eyes snapped open. The rough, coarse texture of linen beneath her palm brought a rush of sensation, and a bewildering realization: no pain? Hadn't she been stabbed in the abdomen, fatally wounded while chasing down a thief? How could she feel nothing? My poor child, my precious son. The frail form of Su Lushir collapsed upon Su Yunchuan, a torrent of heart-wrenching wails erupting from her throat. Your father's bones are barely cold, and these jackals are already circling our orphaned family. How am I supposed to live through this? It was then that Su Yunchuan understood she was lying on the hard earth. She blinked, and a flood of memories, alien and unwelcome, surged into her mind. She was now the daughter of an ordinary family in the Shenwu era. Her father had been a yamen runner, a civil servant of sorts, unjustly accused of embezzling public funds and driven to his death 3 months prior. She had an elder brother, Su Tunin, already married, and a 5-year-old younger brother. Poverty had bound the 7 of them together, never allowing the family to split. But after Su Yamen Runner's death, Su Lushir, overcome with grief, had fallen gravely ill and become bedridden. The family, never wealthy, had now plunged into further despair. Su Tunin, desperate to earn money to treat his mother, had been lured into a gambling den by opportunistic sharks. At first, he won more than he lost, whetting his appetite and fueling his ambition. Today, however, he had been consumed by a feverish frenzy, wagering not only the family property but also his wife and daughter. The very thugs who were now driving them out of their home, intent on seizing his sister-in-law, Lu Mulan, and her 3-year-old daughter. 7 or 8 hulking figures crowded into the small courtyard, while onlookers perched on the walls and peered through the doorway, eager for a glimpse of the spectacle. Su Yunchuan had been knocked to the ground and lost consciousness while trying to prevent them from taking her sister-in-law and niece. As the sequence of events coalesced in her mind, Su Yunchuan's brow furrowed. She had seen enough gamblers in her modern life, their lives spiraling into ruin, their families torn apart. No one ever came out unscathed. Su Tunin sat on the ground, his clothes disheveled, his mind numb. Her sister-in-law, Su Lushir, clutched her 3-year-old daughter, weeping uncontrollably. Suddenly, Su Tunin sprang to his feet and, in a desperate rage, confronted the lead thug. "You cheated! You absolutely cheated! I'm reporting this to the authorities! You scoundrels! Oh, ho! Su Yamen Runner's son has some spirit, does he?" A burly man with a cruel face, known as Ma San, sneered, placing a heavy foot on Su Tunin's chest. He was an orphan raised by the gambling house, specializing in the dirty work of debt collection. "You didn't complain about cheating when you were winning, did you? Now that you've lost, you want to deny your debt and call us scoundrels? Ask around the neighborhood. Has our gambling house ever engaged in such dishonorable behavior?" Ma San glared at Su Tunin, kicked him hard on the thigh, and issued a command: "Get these old women out of here. And leave behind what Su De gambled away." A fresh wave of weeping swept through the Su family, and the crowd of onlookers murmured amongst themselves. "That Su De is useless, utterly useless. He had no business going to a place like that. Now look what's happened. He's gambled away his own wife and daughter. If Su Yamen Runner were alive, he'd die of grief all over again. Not to mention, now Yunchuan will never find a good husband. She's almost of marriageable age, and then this happens. What decent family would want her now? What a waste of such a beautiful face." Around the Su family's small courtyard, the neighbors' chatter was a discordant symphony of pity and judgment. Overwhelmed by this turn of events, Su Lushir's body went limp, her eyes rolled back, and she fainted. Su Tunin crawled over to her on his knees, weeping and calling out to her. "Ah! Someone's dead!" A piercing scream shattered the air. Perhaps the commotion had finally attracted the attention of the authorities. Several yamen runners finally arrived. Make way, make way! What's going on here? Ma San, seeing the newcomers, bowed and scraped, hurrying towards the one in charge. Officer Wang, we're just handling things according to the rules here. Suda lost 1,000 taels of silver in our establishment. He couldn't pay, so he offered his wife and daughter as collateral. What else could we do? The Yamen runner, known as Officer Wang, was clearly displeased with Ma San. He frowned and pushed the thug away. Get away from me. I know what you're like. Hey, Officer Wang, look here. We have a written agreement, signed and sealed by Suda himself. We didn't force him to gamble with us, you know. Ma San pulled a document from his pocket and thrust it towards Officer Wang, who examined it and then shook it in front of Su Tunin. Is this your signature? A hush fell over the crowd, all eyes fixed on Su Tunin. He stared at the document for a moment, then suddenly reached out to snatch it back. Ma San, quick as lightning, snatched it away again, adding a swift kick for good measure. See? He doesn't want to admit to what he agreed to, Ma San said with a disarming smile to Officer Wang. So, can we take them away now? It's not true. I didn't mean to gamble away my wife. It's them. They tricked me. The house told me I had a 90% chance of winning. They cheated me. Otherwise, I would never have gambled. Su Tunin's eyes were bloodshot as he roared in desperation. Su Yunchuan shook her head inwardly. Her good-for-nothing brother still hadn't figured out how he had fallen into this trap. After observing the scene for so long, she had grasped a few fundamental truths. No matter the era, gambling dens were lawless territories. Unless there was concrete proof of cheating, the authorities were powerless to intervene. As expected, Officer Wang simply shook his head, waved his hand, and motioned for his men to leave. Wait. Su Yunchuan instructed her brother to hold the unconscious Su Lucier. She brushed the dirt from her clothes, stood tall, and spoke with a determined voice that carried across the courtyard. My brother was outmatched. Our Su family has always been honest and upright. We were deliberately ensnared, and we can only blame ourselves for being so foolish. But I want to gamble with you again. I wonder if you're brave enough to accept the challenge. Su Yunchuan's calm and resolute demeanor caused a stir. Are you crazy? This is just tempting fate. Do you actually plan to gamble? I think they really are desperate. Gamble again? What do you plan to bet with? Ma San scoffed. Little girl, your brother may have gambled away your sister-in-law, but he has a conscience. He didn't put you on the table. Now, you should take your mother and brother and move on. Even if you want to gamble, what do you have left to bet? I'll bet myself.